Dividing fractions can again be very easy because it's very similar to multiplying fractions, but we have to try to understand it, which makes it a little bit more difficult. So dividing fractions has that same process that if you follow all the steps, you'll get it right, but it can be difficult. First, let's look at something like normal division, like 4 divided by 2. We've got 4 pieces here. If I divide this by 2, so pretty much if I divide it by 2, I've got now half of it's colored in. 4 divided by 2, so there's 1. That would be 2. 4 divided by 2, I'll kind of put it in a different color here. So there's 2 pieces. 4 divided by 2 equals 2. Alright. Now, looking down here, it's a little bit more difficult. So if we've got 1/4, and we're dividing that by a half. So we're dividing that 1/4 by a half. We have to think of not necessarily that quarter or that individual piece of all of this. We're thinking of if I'm dividing that quarter by a half, so I'm dividing it in half now. Now how many pieces do I have? Well, I've got 2 pieces of a quarter. So 2 pieces of a quarter. Now this is a little bit tricky to understand, dividing that by half. 2 pieces of a quarter is actually 2 over 4. Now 2 over 4, another way to look at this is we could actually have 1 times 2 is 2, over 4, which reduces down to 1/2. Okay, so we're actually only looking at kind of this little piece. Now, if you think about it, I'll kind of show you what I mean. We're looking at that little piece, but we're looking at that little piece of that whole thing. We have 1/4 of that 1/2. Let's look at this second one. I think this example is a little bit easier to understand. If we break this up, if we look here, we've got 9/2 or 9 jumps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9/2 or 4.5. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Okay, now another way to look at this is I was jumping by 1s there to get my 9/2. If I jump by 3s, because this is dividing it by 3/2, so I'm still working in halves, but now I'm jumping by 3s. I've got 1, 2, 3. So 9/2 divided by 3/2 is equal to 3. Okay, so when we're looking at the math again, 9/2 divided by 3/2. If I do the same thing I did over here, 9 times 2 is going to be 18 over 6. That reduces to 3 over 1, which is 3. Okay, so 2 different ways, and neither of them might be that clear to you. But again, if you follow these steps, you're always going to do the right thing. You're always going to get the right answer. Change our mixed numbers first. Leave the first, change the sign, flip the second, and multiply. So leave, change, flip, multiply. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Here, I'm leaving the first. Whoa, what did I do to the first though? I reduced it. You didn't have to do that, but it made our life easier. 8 over 4 and 2 over 1, same thing. Switch the sign, flip the second one, multiply. Alright, let's look at this one. This one's probably a little easier to see. Alright, I've already written that multiplication sign in there, just so you remember. Okay, I'm switching the sign. It's no longer division, it's multiplication now. Switch that second one, multiply, reduce. Leave the first, change the sign, switch the second, multiply and reduce. If we look back at this last one, it would have become 4 over 1, and that's just 4. Alright, looking at our next examples, leave the first, flip the second, change the sign. 9 times 5 is 45. 2 times 3 is 6. Reduces to 15/2. Now here I've left the division sign. The reason I've done that is because I need to change this from an a mixed number to an improper fraction first. Then I'm going to actually reduce this one, change the sign, flip the second one, multiply 7 times 5, 2 times 12, and I get my 35/24. Here, same thing. I need to change that, but I can change the sign here because I'm dealing with my second fraction when I flip. So I did it all in one step. Change this from a mixed number to improper, flip the sign, flip that fraction, then I actually reduced. I think that's a little bit easier than multiplying these big numbers. I divided both of these by 2, both of these by 4, then I multiplied, and my numbers are already reduced. Go ahead and try the examples, the questions for this section.